Okay, good afternoon, guys and girls. Welcome to today's life science session. Before we start, please make sure your audio is on. Please make sure your speaker's volume is turned up. Okay, and please note that you will be muted, automatically muted when you join the session. This means I will not be able to hear you. So if you want to ask questions, please use the question box on your right hand side. Please type in any question that you want to ask me there. Also, please download the presentation and additional resources. We just have the presentation of today's webinar on our handout section. Please make sure you download them now and save them for future use. Also, please be encouraged to ask questions if you did not understand something. Please ask questions. There is no such thing as a stupid question. Feel free. Ask anything whatever that you need clarity on, please ask on the question box. We will see if we have time at the end to answer questions. Otherwise, like last week, I will answer your questions and email them back to you. Okay. Also, please answer questions that are relevant to today's session. So please do not ask anything out of today's session. Do not make any inappropriate comments because you will be dismissed from the webinar. Please make sure everything that you write or type in the question box is related to today's session. All right. Also, the video will be available on the Impact YouTube channel for later use in case you have missed something. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a few more minutes to make sure that your audio is turned on and your speaker volume is up. Okay. I'm also going to ask you guys to please indicate by a show of hands if you can hear me. Please indicate by a show of hands if you can hear me. All right, can I please indicate by a show of hands if you can hear me? The hand is on your right hand side on the screen. Okay, not everyone's hands are up. So I'm just gonna wait for everyone to put up their hands. Okay, you can already start asking questions. I see some of you are asking questions. You can already start asking them, but I'm not going to answer them right away. I will only answer them later. All right. So while you're still thinking of something, you can please type it on the question box. Okay. Not everyone's hands are up, so I'm not quite sure if you can hear me or not. I'm gonna ask again. Please raise your hands if you can hear me. Okay, so I'm just going to give it a few more seconds and then we're gonna start with the business of today. Also, if you did not get to ask your question on the session, please send an email to academics@impact.co.za. And then your answers will be emailed back to you. Should you not receive an answer to your questions, please send an email to info@impact.co.za, and your matter will be attended as soon as possible. All right, let's just check again. Please. Okay, I can see everyone's hands are up now. Thank you. We will now begin the session. Okay, so today we are taking it a bit deeper. We are going deep today. We are speaking matters of the heart. We are going to be speaking about everything heart. Okay. Not the interesting conversations, however, not about the relationship part of your heart or the love part of your heart. Instead, we're going to see the mechanism of the heart, how it works, and why it's necessary, and so forth. All right, so we will be doing the transport system in animals. In last week's session, we have seen that some plants have a transport system. And we have seen that the transport system helps the plant transport water from the roots to other parts of the plant and to the leaves for photosynthesis. We have also seen that the food that was produced during photosynthesis travels from the leaves to other parts of the plant through the transport system, that being the xylem that transports the water and the phloem that transport the food. Okay, so today we will be looking at the exact same thing, but now we'll be focusing on transport system in animals. Right. Okay, let's get right to it. So just like plants need water and food to survive, animals need water and food to survive as well. Okay, so the food needs to be transported to various parts of the body. Right, the blood and heart makes it all possible through our amazing circulatory system. Okay, so today we will be speaking about transportation of oxygen in particular. We will not be going into detail on the food side of the transportation that you will be doing next year in grade 11. When you're doing the digestive system, you will be looking more into detail how nutrients that you food is absorbed into the blood and how it is transported to other parts of the body where it's needed. So today we will be looking at the transportation of oxygen throughout the body. Okay, so we can distinguish between two types of transport system in mammals. So we have the cardiovascular circulatory system, and then we have the human blood circulatory system. Okay, so the cardiovascular circulatory system can also be divided into two parts. We have a single circulation, which means that animal receives only deoxygenated blood. Right. One mammal in particular that has a single circulation is a fish. Right. We also have a double circulation system, which has two sides. The one side carrying oxygenated blood, while the other side carrying deoxygenated blood. By deoxygenated, I mean blood that is low on oxygen. Okay, that's deoxygenated blood. Now, we humans have a double circulation, and we're gonna look into that in the next slides. Right? Then, also, the human blood circulatory system is divided into two. We have the pulmonary circulation, that is circulatory, the system between heart and the lungs. Okay, so oxygen is transported from the lungs to the heart, and and deoxygenated blood travels from the the heart to the right part of the heart to the left part of the heart. So everything that has to do with the heart and the lungs, we refer to that as pulmonary circulation. And the circulation between the heart and the rest of the body is known as the systematic circulation. Okay, so those are our two transport systems. Right, if you have any questions, please on this slide, please send them now. Remember, we will only attend to questions at the end of the session, or I will send you feedback via email. Okay, so if you have any questions on this slide, you can please just type it in now in the question box. Okay, so today we'll also be looking at the pathway of blood. Okay, but before we get into this slide, we're going to go look at the structure of the heart first, and then we're going to come back to this slide. Okay, so the heart is divided into 4 chambers. Okay, so we have 2 ventricles. We have the right ventricle, and then we have the left ventricle. We also have 2 atria. We have the right atria, and then we have the right atrium, and then we have the left atrium. Okay, so this is the external structure of the heart. I know some of you, when you think of heart, you're thinking of that icon over there, which looks nothing like our heart, but this is how our heart looks, the external structure of the heart. Right, so the heart is divided into 4 chambers, right? Also on the heart, we have veins which carry blood towards the heart. And then we have arteries which carry blood away from the heart. We're going to look into the next sessions if whether that blood that is carried into the heart or towards the heart is oxygenated or deoxygenated. We will be looking at that in the next couple of slides. Okay, so right now you should know the external structure of the heart. It is divided into 4 chambers that consists of the right ventricle and the left ventricle. Okay, let me just get my pen. Okay, it is divided into 4 chambers: the right ventricle, the left ventricle, the right atrium, and the left atrium. Okay. Okay, now let's go back to our first slide. Okay, so I'm just going to give you an overview of how blood travels, right? So, I mean, how oxygen travels, right? So, we inhale oxygen from the atmosphere into the lungs, right? So what happens is there is an alveolus in our lungs that is connected to blood capillaries. Okay, so what happens is okay, so what happens is in our heart we have 2 vena cavas, right? So we have a superior vena cava and we have an inferior vena cava. So the superior vena cava transports deoxygenated blood from the upper body, okay? And then the inferior vena cava transports deoxygenated blood from the lower body into the right ventricle. So everything, the whole process of the circulatory system of transporting oxygen starts from the right side of our heart, from the right side of our heart into the left side of our heart. So what happens is blood, deoxygenated blood from the body is transported into the right atrium. From the right atrium, it goes into the ventricle, which is transported into the pulmonary vein, and then from the pulmonary vein, it goes into the lungs. Now, in the lungs, what happens is it will drop off carbon dioxide. Remember, the blood is coming from, it's deoxygenated. It has low oxygen, but it is high on carbon dioxide. So when it gets into the lungs, it will drop off the carbon dioxide, and then it will pick up the oxygen that we inhaled. From there, what happens is it will now be oxygenated. Now, the oxygenated blood will be taken into the pulmonary veins. Remember, veins carry blood towards the heart. So this means when it's in the veins, we know that it's going to the heart. So now, please note the difference in color. So the blue represents oxygen poor and carbon dioxide rich blood. Okay, but the red represents oxygen rich but carbon dioxide poor blood. So this means the blood here is poor in carbon dioxide. Remember, it dropped it off. It dropped it off in our lungs. Okay, so it's now poor in carbon dioxide, but it's rich in oxygen because it has just picked up oxygen in our lungs. Okay, so from there, it is traveling through our pulmonary veins, going to where? To the heart, to the heart. But now it's going to the left side of our heart. Okay, so what happens when it gets there is it's gonna move again through our veins and go to other parts of the body where it is needed, in our cells, where the oxygen is needed. Okay, so I'm gonna repeat this pathway again, but we are gonna go into more detail in the next couple of slides. This is just an overview. Repetition is key. Okay, so if you want to really understand something, even when you are studying, repeat it time and time again up until you can understand it. Okay, so I'm just gonna repeat this if I wasn't clear in the beginning. Right, so we have deoxygenated blood that is coming from our bodies, okay? Not our lungs, from our bodies, right? It's gonna travel through our vena cava. There's two vena cavas. We have the superior vena cava, which takes blood from the upper part of our body, and then we have the inferior vena cava, which takes blood from the lower parts of our body. In any case, these vena cavas are transporting deoxygenated blood. Okay, you can see with the blue color. From there, it's gonna go into the right side of our heart. Okay, it goes into the atrium. From the atrium, goes into the ventricles. From the ventricles, it is forced into the pulmonary arteries. Remember, pulmonary arteries are always taking blood away from the heart. Arteries, think A for away, away from the heart. So then the deoxygenated blood will be taken away from the heart. Where is it going? To the veins. To the lungs. When it gets to the lungs, it's going to drop off the carbon dioxide and pick up some oxygen. Where does the oxygen come from? We have inhaled it. Okay, after picking up the oxygen, it's going to go into the pulmonary veins. Veins are now going towards the heart. So when they get to the heart, they will be taken into the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, they will go into the other parts of the body. So the section where blood is transported into the lungs is known as the pulmonary circulation. And then where blood is taken away from the heart to other parts of the body is known as systematic circulation. Okay, so from the heart to the lungs back to the heart, that is known as the pulmonary circulation. From the heart to other parts of the body, known as systematic circulation. Okay, so if you have any questions on this slide, please do type them. All right, I will get back to them after the session. Okay. Okay, so atria is a plural for atrium. So atrium would be singular, and then atria is both of them. Both of the two atriums will be referred to as atria. So it will be the plural of atrium. But when we speak of one, we speak of an atrium. Okay, so two will speak of atria. All right. Okay. So blood. From term 1, we have learned that blood is a type of connective tissue, but it is in fluid format. It is in liquid format, and its function is it transports various substances throughout the blood. Okay, so what's inside the blood? What will we find inside the blood? We'll find the red blood cells, we'll find oxygen, we find carbon dioxide, we find hormones, we find plasma, we find platelets, we find waste, white blood cells, and digested food. But for this lesson, we'll only be looking at the transportation of oxygen and carbon dioxide, right? Okay. Okay, so blood travels through blood vessels. We have a vein, an artery, and capillaries that link arteries and veins together. So the veins are blood vessels that carry blood towards the heart. But arteries are blood vessels that carry blood away from the heart. Like I said, when you think of artery, think of A for away from the heart. Okay, and the capillaries will link the two, is a link of the two. Okay, so we already went through that slide showing us the external structure of the heart. From the outside, we will see the four chambers, and we will see the vein and the artery. Okay. Now, this is what it looks like from the inside. Okay. Beautiful work of art. Okay. I've spoken of the superior and the vena cava. Okay. So this is where the deoxygenated blood will travel. We have the superior vena cava on top there that transports blood from the upper body, and then we have the inferior vena cava there that will be transporting blood from the lower body. Okay, and then we have our one chamber, which is the right ventricle, and our upper chamber, which is the right atrium, right? And then we have valves there known as the tricuspid valve that open and close to allow blood to go in. Okay, they open to allow blood from the atrium into the ventricles. They close so that blood doesn't travel back. Okay. Again, we have pulmonary veins. Remember, veins carry blood towards the heart. So the veins are responsible for taking blood into the heart. Okay. And then we have the atrioventricular node. We will see what that does. Then we have the superior node. So basically those send impulses, electrical impulses to the valves, telling them to open and close when the one is to travel, right? And then we have the septum that divides the right and the left hand side of the body. Then we have the aorta, which transports oxygenated blood into other parts of the body. And then we have another aorta on top there that transports oxygenated blood into other parts of the body. But now this is for the upper body. This is for the lower body. So how do I erase that? Oops. Sorry about my pens. So basically, the aorta and the vena cava they have the same function. It's just that this one carries deoxygenated blood, this one carries oxygenated blood. This carries deoxygenated blood away from the body, this carries oxygenated blood into the body. Okay, again we have the pulmonary artery that is responsible for transporting deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle into the lungs. Okay, so this will be connected to the lungs somehow. Then we have the pulmonary veins, which will also be connected to the lungs, but now they are carrying oxygenated blood from the lungs into the left hand side of the heart. Okay, again, in our ventricle, we have our left ventricle, we have a valve that opens to let blood flow. But now this is called a bicuspid valve. So the valve inside our right ventricle is known as a tricuspid valve. And then the valve in our left ventricle is known as the bicuspid valve. All right. So if you have any questions on this, again, please do type them inside the question box. Okay. The cardiac cycle shows us how blood travels, how it's able to go from the atrium into the ventricle. Okay, so the heart is a pump, right? It pumps blood into and away from the heart into other parts of the body. So the beat of your heart is caused by the continuous rhythm of contract and relaxation of the muscles. Okay, and the contraction of the heart muscle is known as a systole, and the relaxation is known as diastole. Okay, the heart beats 2 times. The first one is known as an atrial systole, and it is when blood is forced into the ventricles. The second one is the ventricular systole, and this is when blood is forced out of the ventricle into the pulmonary artery to the lungs. Okay, so basically this is how it works. Let me just find a nice Go back to my heart here. So when deoxygenated blood travels into the atrium, what happens is the atrium, as soon as the atrium becomes filled with blood, these valves will start to open. Okay, when it's filled with blood, it will contract. It will contract. When it contracts, these valves will open, and then blood will be taken into the ventricle. As it is taken into the ventricle, as soon as it gets into the ventricle, the valves will close so that blood does not flow back into the atrium. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that. Deoxygenated blood will flow into the atrium. As soon as it is filled, it will start to contract. And as it contracts, the valves will open, allowing the blood to flow into the ventricle. As soon as they get into the ventricle, the valves close so that the blood does not travel back into the atrium. Okay, so when this is filled, it will travel into, it's going to be forced into the pulmonary artery. And then from the pulmonary artery, the blood is going to travel into the lungs. When this relaxation and contraction happens, so when this atrium contracts and blood blood flows into the ventricle, this is known as this is known as the atrial systole. When blood is forced into the ventricles. Okay, sorry, let me repeat that. So as soon as blood fills the atrium, it will start to contract, opening the valves, and blood will flow into the ventricle. This is known as the atrial systole. So the atrium contracts, opens the valves, and blood flows into the ventricle. This is known as the atrial systole. Okay, so what happens next is the ventricle is going to be filled with blood. Okay, when it's filled with blood, it's going to also contract. When it's filled with blood, it's going to contract, and blood is going to be forced into the pulmonary artery. This is known as the ventricular systole, when the ventricle contracts and forces blood out of the ventricle. This is known as the ventricular systole. All this happens when the atrium and the ventricle contracts. Diastole is relaxation. Systole is contraction. Okay, I hope I was clear in that. Right. Okay. So in our structure, in our internal structure, we saw that there was a superior node. Okay, it's also called an SA node, and we have an atrioventricular node. Okay, so let's see what role they play. Okay, let's see what role they play. So the SA node is found on the upper inside wall of the right atrium. Okay, please take note, it is found on the right atrium. Okay, it is a pacemaker. It is the pacemaker of the heart, and then it initiates a heartbeat every 0.85 seconds. Okay, the signal travels across the atria. The signals travels across the atria, causing them to contract. And as the atria contracts, the valves will open and blood will be loaded into the ventricles. Okay, so that's what they assist with. They send signals into the atria to tell them to contract. Okay, so when the atria becomes filled with blood, the SA node will tell it, listen, atria, it's time to contract now so that blood can flow into the ventricles. Right. Remember, the whole purpose is to get the deoxygenated blood into the lungs. The end product is the lungs where they are going to pick up oxygen. Okay, that's our goal. That's the goal of the blood as it's traveling. Okay. Okay, and then we have the AV node. It is found on the bottom surface of the right atria. The SA node is found on the upper part of the right atria. The AV node is found on the bottom part of the right atria. Okay. So electrical impulse passes to the ventricles via the AV nodes and the bundle of His. They pass the impulse to the base of the ventricles. Then the bundle of His is a group of fibers that conduct impulses to the Purkinje fibers, which carry impulses to the left and right ventricles. The ventricles will then contract, and then blood will flow into the arteries, where it will be taken away from the heart into the lungs. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at the heart rate. So the speed, how fast or how slow your heartbeat is, depends on the cardiovascular control center, and it also depends on the medulla oblongata. You will be looking at this in grade 12. Okay, medulla oblongata is a part of the nervous system. It is part of your brain. It's a part in your brain that controls the heart rate. Okay, we have looked at this, but we're gonna go through them again. So during the atrial systole, the SA nodes send impulses to the muscles of the atria, telling them to contract, and then it causes the tricuspid valve to open, and then blood will flow into the ventricles. During ventricular systole, the electrical signals go to the AV node, causing the ventricle to contract, and then the blood will be forced into the pulmonary vein. Okay, and then during general diastole, remember this is relaxation of muscles. The atria and the ventricle relax, and then the valves close. Okay, so as soon as the atria and the ventricle relaxes, the valves will close so that blood moves forward and not backward. Right. Okay, so let's look into the circulation again. Remember, the blue represents deoxygenated blood. Okay, so this would be from the head. The upper body would be our heads, our arms, and not the lungs, just our heads and our arms. Bring about deoxygenated blood. And then they go through what? The superior vena cava into the right side of our heart. That's not the heads and the arms are not the only source of deoxygenated blood or carbon dioxide rich blood. Also, carbon dioxide or or deoxygenated blood can come from the liver as a result of reactions taking place there. It can come from the digestive system as a product of things that are happening there. It can come from the kidneys, from the legs. Remember, during cellular respiration, energy is broken down and carbon dioxide is a byproduct. So that carbon dioxide flows back into the blood. So then that deoxygenated blood will also travel. But now this will be known as our inferior vena cava. They go into the right atrium. From the right atrium to the ventricle. From the ventricle to the pulmonary artery. From the pulmonary artery to the lungs. When they get to the lungs, they drop off the carbon dioxide and pick up oxygen. Now we have red blood because it's oxygenated. So what's going to happen is it's going to travel into the left side of the heart. From there, it's going to go into the liver. Oxygen-rich blood is going to go into the liver, to the digestive system, to the kidneys, to the legs, heads, and to the arms. Right? So that's just the repetition of what we have learned in the previous slides. Okay? Remember that the transportation of deoxygenated blood into the lungs and away from the lungs is known as pulmonary circulation, and to the other parts of the body known as systematic circulation. Right? Okay. Now, that brings us to the end of our presentation. But I will be giving you tips on answering essay questions. I will particularly give an example of an essay on this topic, on this particular topic that we were busy with now. Okay. So essays are found, or essay questions are found in section C of your papers, and they are out of 20 marks. Now, out of 20 marks, the 17 marks are awarded for content and the 3 marks for synthesis, right? This is not a literature essay, okay? So we want facts, okay? So when you answer these questions, you must give us facts, right? It's not a literature question where you want to fill 2.5 pages on lots of things. All you want to do is you just want to fill 2.5 papers so that you can get your marks for those 400 to 500 words. This is not a literature essay, so you must stick to facts on whatever topic that you are asked to discuss. Right? So essay question is found in section C. Remember, your question paper will be divided into 3 sections. Section A, which will be short questions, true or false, match column A or B. Then also in life sciences, you get terminology questions where you are asked to give one word for a description, and multiple choice questions that you will find in section A. Section B will be longer questions where you'll be given diagrams or asked to sketch diagrams or labels, or it will be longer questions. Section C is normally made of an essay question out of 20 marks. Okay, so when you get an essay question, step 1 is to read the question carefully and thoroughly. You must read it carefully and thoroughly, unpacking the question by underlining all keywords. So you must underline all the important concepts that you see on the essay question. From there, you will formulate the subtopics. The more subtopics you have, the more content you're gonna have, because you're gonna have a lot of things to discuss in your essay. So start by unpacking the question by underlining all the keywords and write down your subtopics. From there, you're going to use a mind map, but not on your exam paper. Okay, this, like I said, this is not a literature question where you are given marks for the mind map and marks for the draft. This is just to help you write your essay. So on a rough piece of paper, start drawing a mind map where you're going to list all the key factors that you're going to be using to answer your essay question. Okay. Remember, this is not a literature essay, so it is in your best interest to get to the point. Don't make your sentences too long. Okay, you're not going to be given a mark for the number of words you are used. Don't make your sentences too long. Get straight to the point. Okay, and then your essay must be divided into logical parts according to the question. Do not write things that are not related to the question. Always go back to the question to see that whatever that you're writing in your essay is relevant to the essay question. Again, do not repeat facts. Okay, do not repeat facts. Okay, we still have some time, so I'm going to give an example, an essay question. Let me just check if everyone is still awake. Okay, can you guys please just indicate by a show of hands if you're still awake, if your heart is still beating like it should be. Please, by a show of hands. Okay, I will be discussing the essay question now. Show of hands, show of hands. Show of hands. Right. Guys, repetition is key. Always when you're studying, if you find a topic difficult for you to understand, keep on reading and reading again. So make notes. Okay, so you study thoroughly, notes, and then draw yourself a little mind map. From there, find past papers, look at how the question is asked, and then try and answer the question. Use your facilitators guides or your memorandums to check your answers. If you didn't get it correct, look at how the memo has structured the answers. From there, go back, look at your mind map again. After your mind map, you're gonna go find another question paper because there's gonna be no use for you to try that question paper. Find another question paper, answer the questions, and then mark yourself. So you keep on doing that until you are comfortable with a certain topic. So an example of an essay question on this topic would be, describe the pulmonary circulation and explain how the heart is suited to perform its function. Okay, so I'm gonna read it again. Describe pulmonary circulation and explain how the heart is suited to perform its function. Now look at what this question is asking you. This question is asking you to only focus on the blood flow between the heart and the lungs. not the rest of the body. So we are only interested in the blood flow between the heart and the lungs. So that will be our first subtopic, the pulmonary circulation. Next, we will need to explain how the heart is structurally suited to perform its function of transporting or of pumping blood into the lungs and away from the lungs to other parts of the body. So we're going to be looking at the structure of the heart and what about it allows it to perform its functions. Okay, so our two subtopics would be pulmonary circulation, which will give you about 13 points, and then structure of the heart, not 13 points, 13 marks. Okay, remember the three out of the 20 marks go for synthesis. So basically they will be looking if your essay is logical. Do you build up your discussion logically? Is everything that you needed to mention mentioned there? So that's what the 3 marks is going to be on. The 17 marks will be content. So if 13 points go to the pulmonary circulation, to the one subtopic, it will leave you with 4 marks. This means the remainder of the 4 marks, you will be describing the structure of the heart and how it allows itself to perform the function that it needs to perform. Okay, so we still have about 8 minutes. I'm going to quickly go through the essay question. Okay, so obviously in your paper you'll write your topic, the top of the page. From there you'll write your first subtopic, pulmonary circulation. What happens during pulmonary circulation? Deoxygenated blood flows from the right atrium through the tricuspid valves into the right ventricle. When the ventricles contract during systole, remember systole is contraction, the deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle is pumped into the pulmonary artery. Okay, so it's passed through the semilunar valves into the pulmonary artery, which branches into 2 arteries entering each lung. So some of the blood will go into the left lung and some of the blood will go into the right lung. So we were in our discussion, we were only looking at one part of the lung. Okay, but the pulmonary artery branches into two, one going into the left and the other one into the right lung. Okay, in the lung, carbon dioxide will diffuse out of the blood into the lungs and we will exhale it. And then oxygen will diffuse into the blood. And then the capillaries will unite to form a venule. Okay, these venules will form our pulmonary veins. Remember, veins travel towards the heart. Whenever you hear the word vein, you must know it's taking something to the heart. So the vein will leave the lung, the blood will leave the lungs through the pulmonary veins, carrying oxygenated blood back to the heart, but now the left part of the heart. Okay, so we don't need to mention the fact where it's gonna go from there. Okay, so we were only asked to discuss the pulmonary circulation. Now, our next subtopic. Why or how is the heart suited to perform its function? Okay, the heart has the semilunar valves between the ventricle and the pulmonary artery. The semilunar valve closes to prevent blood from going back into the ventricles. So the fact that it's got semilunar valves makes it perfect to perform its function because we know blood is not going to flow back. The semilunar valves will close as soon as the blood leaves the ventricles. So this makes it perfect. Again, it's got the tricuspid valves and the bicuspid valves, which also close to prevent the backflow of blood. Okay, again, the heart is well suited for its function because it's got a septum. Remember, in our structure, we saw that there was a septum that divides the left and the right side of the heart. So this prevents mixing of blood in between the ventricles and the atria. So the septum prevents mixing of blood between the ventricles and between the right ventricle and the left ventricle, and between the right atrium and the left atrium. Okay, again, why is the heart suited for its function? The walls are made up of cardiac muscles. Okay, so the fact that the walls are made of the walls of the heart are made of cardiac muscles make it well suited for its function, because there is a constant contraction. Remember those systole and diastole. We need we need muscles for that to happen. So the heart is filled with muscles that allow for constant contraction and relaxation. Okay, which allows the cardiac cycle to take place. Okay, so remember, guys, send your questions. Use this time to send your questions. I'll give you feedback, and I'll try to make it as detailed as possible. Okay, again, this should not replace your textbook for now, and I'm saying for now because mind maps are a good tool to use to study when you already understand a topic and when you already have a good background knowledge on the topic. So for now, you are going to use this mind map as a supplement. So this means you're going to use it together with your textbook, okay, to make sure you don't miss anything for your examinations. So use this with your textbook for now, and maybe when you're preparing for your final examination, you can use the mind map because you'll already have an understanding of the topic. Okay, again, please, in your textbooks, go and look at the diseases of the circulatory system because they will also be examined. Okay, and yes, thank you for joining me today. Remember to wash your hands and stay safe. Okay, good luck with your preparations, and I wish you all the best. Right, please use this time to send in all your questions. Remember, you can find this recording on the Impact YouTube channel should you need clarity on something, or if I was going too fast. Okay, the skeletal system, please do a self-study on that. And just another tip, spelling does not count in classes. Okay, so but it must not mean something else in life sciences. So if you spell something wrong, they will not mark it wrong. It must not mean something else in life sciences. Okay, so yeah, don't kill yourself, or don't be hard on yourself if you are not able to spell something. The terms, the life sciences terms, are quite difficult, so don't be too hard on yourself. They will not mark you wrong if you are unable to spell something. Okay, as for pronunciation, pronounce it in a way that makes you comfortable. Okay, don't say I told you this, but as long as you can remember what you're talking about. Right? Okay, I will see you guys next time.